Ja, det här avsnittet då som kommer här, det handlar ju om tidstecken och hur snabbt vi närmar oss ändens tid. Och det står i skriften ifrån första Thessalonikerbrevet 50 kapitel som just handlar om ändens tid, så står det: släck inte anden, förakta inte profetior eller profetiskt tal, som den här videon nu kommer att handla om. Men pröva allt, står det, och det gör vi rätt i. Och det säger Johannes också i sitt brev. Vet ni, det står ju att vi ska pröva alla andar. Och vi ska behålla det goda, alltså det som är ljus då. Och vi ska hålla oss borta från all slags ont. Dra er alltså undan allt som är av mörker. Så jag upplever att det här jag lagt ut nu, det är värt att testas. För det stämmer väldigt väl med vad vi ser utvecklas just nu. Men som sagt var, pröva allt.
This is the thing that they're building with what's called 15-minute cities. Right?
Yes.
You will not be able to purchase out of your 15-minute radius of your house. And you're like, well, they can't make me do that. I'll just go do it anyway. Well, fine. Go outside your 15-minute radius, which, by the way, they can tell your location, certainly with just even your cell phone. But your money will shut off. Once you make it past that geofence, it will shut off. You can't do anything economically past 15 minutes to your house.
It's happening in the world right now. And this is setting up the mark of the beast.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm convinced. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things that is setting up the mark of the beast is what's happening economically in America and in the world. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, again, back to Revelation 13, that's the proof text, right? It's not a conspiracy theory, but God warned nearly 2,000 years ago there's going to come a time when two people, false prophet and the Antichrist, the beast, are going to take control of the planet, including economically, to where the point is where they would be able to control the buying and selling on the planet. And it'll be tied in biometrically, is the modern vernacular for that, with a marks in the right hand specifically or in the forehead. So if that's going to happen, then you have to basically have the ability to control the economies around the world, right? That was written 2,000 years ago. Well, guess what? That's been in place for a long time.
Right.
We already have a global bank. We already have a global lending institution, the International Monetary Fund. We already have a global, if you will, strong arm to punish people who don't obey these global economic rules and things of that nature. So the infrastructure has been there, and that punishers the World Trade Organization.
Right.
And so, but then, okay, well, then Revelation 13 says you're going to make buying and selling with basically your body parts. Well, obviously that to me would imply a cashless society. Because what are you going to do? Take $20 to your right hand, and, or put it all on your forehead? And no. So obviously it's some sort of electronic marking system. That's common sense, and that's been in place for a long time. A cashless society. In fact, for the first time in history, we're now seeing whole countries go cashless. One of the far reaches, they're not the only one, but one of the farthest ones is Sweden. Sweden right now is 99% cashless,
right?
And they just completely get rid of it. And then Sweden is already taking the next step. Then they're having microchip parties. So they're used to doing cashless, but they're already going to the next step, and they're big on the microchips because now I could just wave my hand. I got used to doing it cashless in my hand with a chip and a card. I've been used to. Forget that. I'll just use the chip in my phone. Mm-hmm. Now they're skipping it and doing the chip, and now I can do it with my hand. So it's like a frog in a pot. Warm this up to it. The Bible's the only book on the planet that tells us where it's headed. So, but then again, well, wait a second. So they had their version of that. So at some point, you're going to have to unify. They've already got the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. We're already seeing people line up all over the world, whole countries even, to go cashless. But how are you going to unify it? Well, that's what's being done as we speak. The Klaus Schwab and the gang, they're what they call the fourth industrial revolution that they're building, which really should be called the Fourth Reich. They also call it the Great Reset. And that reset on the one side is an economic reset. And admittedly, they want to tie all the world's planets, all the world's economies into a cashless society. They want to reset it, the Great Reset, and they will control it all for our supposed good. And that's what they're doing around the planet right now. In every major developed country, what they're pushing for now is a digital currency. Right. And not just a digital currency, but a digital currency that can be completely controlled, not just biometrically, but based on a person's compliance to these guys. Now, believe it or not, China has been a test bed for this for many years. It's called the social credit scoring system that they've had in place for years. And if you look at that, it's not just a digital economy over in China, cashless, but your behavior is monitored. That's the other half of this thing. You don't get to buy and sell if your behavior doesn't comply with the government. And this has been out there for years, and I think they're working out the bugs on it. And basically, in Asia right now, if you don't, if you say anything bad about the government, you're in big trouble economically. You can't fly a plane, can't board a train, you can't get a loan. And it isn't just you got to listen and do what the government tells you to do, or if you speak out against them. It's what you post on social media. It's who you hang out with, because they can see you through the CCTV camera system. And even things like if you jaywalk, or if you let your dog go to the bathroom and you don't clean it up, you get punished economically. That's the power of going to a cashless society.
This is true. This is what's happening in China right now. And I saw, Billy, in one article I read, if you went to the grocery store and bought water versus liquor, if you buy water, you get a plus. If you got a liquor, you get a minus. And everything you're saying, they're monitoring everything through the electronic digital currency.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and here's another thing. This is what's creepy. You think that's bad enough? They will reward you over there if you turn in somebody that you saw doing something bad.
Nazi Germany.
Maybe they didn't. It's like, what? It's crazy. So you're going like, well, too bad for China. Well, guess what? This is what's going on that people need to realize. It's going all over the world, including here in the United States of America. It's called the CBDC. Of course, they don't call it the social credit scoring system, because people are starting to catch on to what's going on in China. But basically, Klaus Schwab, and it's also on tape that he admits that China is basically a role model, and he admits that they're the next world superpower. So I think they're working with China, and that they're basically the test bed. But they basically want to bring the China model to the whole world. The term that's out there, if you want to check it out, it's called techno-communism. Techno-communism. And basically what's going on in China, they want to bring to the planet, right? And you think, well, that'll never happen here. Well, it's already happening. Go back to what we talked about in our last interview. Who's Klaus Schwab's favorite disciple on tape? Mr. Biden, right? Biden was brought in to purposely destroy the American economy. And you're going like, well, why would he do that? Because what's Klaus's goal? He wants to reset the global economy. Well, if you're going to reset the global economy, make it cashless and control the whole thing, then you got to get rid of the current one. Well, who's the current reserve for the global economy? What does the world economy revolve around? The U.S. dollar.
That's right.
So if you're going to reset it, what do you got to do first? Get rid of the U.S. dollar. That's why Biden was brought in. That's why the very first thing he did when he got in office was what? The very first day, shut the pipelines off. He began to do things to purposely hurt our economy, destroy our economy, and he hasn't stopped yet. And this is a misnomer. I mean, I get it. The guy's, has trouble reading a cue card and he fumbles whatever. But people, they kind of like, oh, he's just making dumb decisions. No. He's not just making dumb decisions. He's making deliberate decisions to deliberately destroy our economy because he works for Schwab, and you got to.
Has. I want you to think about what that means. And we'll go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 1. I mean, the creation day. Do you know what God told Adam and Eve back there? The Bible said when he created man in his own image, he gave man dominion. He said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping things, and the beasts of the earth after its kind. So he made the beasts of the earth after his kind, the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth on the earth after this kind, and God saw that it was good. And then when he created man in his own image, he said, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over the earth, and over the creeping things that creepeth on the earth. Get this. God gave man dominion over all the earth. Genesis 1:26 and 7. God gave man dominion over all the earth. But what you're seeing with this globalist agenda is not man taking dominion, it's Satan taking dominion. They're talking about chip in our brains with computer chips that's going to integrate us into a quantum computer and artificial intelligence, and we're going to lose our sovereign will. We're going to lose our free will. We're going to become part of a hive mind if they get that chip in your body. I'm as convinced today as I ever was that that's the reason God doesn't want us to take that chip, because if you take that chip, you're going to effectively lose your soul. You can't have your soul when you lose your mind. When you lose control of your mind, you've given your soul and everything that you are to a satanic agenda. And it's clear to me, when I look at these verses in the book of Genesis, that God meant for righteousness to rule over the earth. Truth, righteousness, holiness, sacredness. If mankind had been pure and holy and had not sinned against God, this whole world today would be unspeakably beautiful, unspeakably pure and holy, and without want, without sickness, without death, without pain, without suffering, without lies, without murders, without anything bad. God never made this world for the agenda that the serpent brought to bear in the garden. And in the garden, God said to that serpent, I'm going to raise up a seed of this woman that's going to bruise your head. And that prophecy speaks of the day when Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God and Son of Man, is going to come back and crush Satan's head, or bruise his head, and take over this world. For this cause Jesus Christ came into the world that he might destroy the works of the devil. And I'm here to tell you, God Almighty is coming in the body of Jesus Christ at the end of this period to destroy, utterly destroy the works of the devil. But before he does, we're going to see Satan attempt to take over the world. Don't ask me why God allowed this to go the way it has, but he has, and you and I don't have a vote. I'm not pretending to be able to answer all the questions about all the meanings and purposes of God, because no man knows all the meanings and purposes of God. But I can tell you what I can tell you that's written in this book. We're headed for a day when Jesus said there's going to be great tribulation. Why is there going to be great tribulation? There's going to be great tribulation because, as the book of Daniel chapter 7 says, that the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. And he's going to speak words against the Most High God and will wear out the saints of the Most High God. That's just 2 verses in the book of Daniel. And then when you go to the book of Revelation chapter 13, you see the prophecy saying that it's be given unto him to make war with the saints and overcome them. Power is going to be given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. That statement is saying to us that Satan and the man of sin, a.k.a. the Antichrist, is going to have dominion over all men and over all the world. The whole world is coming under the ownership and dominion of Satan shortly before Jesus Christ comes back. Now, you and I weren't ready for this. If you were, you tell me about it. Nobody was expecting this. We didn't think, especially in the United States of America. Now, if you've lived all your life in China, or if you've lived all your life in Russia, or in Cuba, or some of these communist states, despotic states, then you're acquainted already with not having ownership of your property. If you go to the communist states of the world, you're going to see people living in high-rise apartments. By and large, you're not going to see a great percentage of single-family housing. You're going to see people living in government housing. And that's where we're headed, guys. I mean, I grew up in Texas. Everybody has their own house just about. I mean, there's certainly apartment complexes, but certainly not on the scale that there is in the communist states. In the communist states, and it's not just the property they're going to take. Now, and let me talk about that taking of the property. Most of you probably heard by now that Bill Gates is the largest owner of farmland. In fact, in the state of Louisiana, just next door to me, he has just bought up massive acreage in the state of Louisiana, and I think they said he's now the largest owner of farmland in the state of Louisiana. And that's happening all over the country. But then you see these massive international corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, some of these others, they're buying up property. Some of these investment companies are now buying whole communities, whole neighborhoods, whole subdivisions of houses. They're paying, in some cases, 40% above market prices to buy hundreds and hundreds of houses at a time. What's that all about? Guys, the world is being swallowed up by the corporate elites. The multi-billionaires and trillionaires are buying up land, they're buying up houses, they're buying up everything. And what's going to come of that? Instead of us being governed, we're going to be dictated by corporate elites, by corporate oligarchy. That's the Antichrist system, guys. And I'm going to tell you who's behind that. The Pope of the Roman Catholic Church is the number one sponsor of that. When you see that Laudato Si climate change agenda that the Pope has confirmed that he is beginning to strengthen in the next 7 years, beginning last May, the Pope vowed that he was going to strengthen this globalist agenda for the next 7 years. He's heading us into a world of communism, red communism, state-owned properties. You'll own nothing. We can't even think about there in the United States. I mean, I'm wishing right now that I was buying a big old farm, and that's what I hope to do before the time runs out on me. But the problem is, I know what the Bible says. He's going to take over the whole world, and these communist people at the World Economic Forum saying that we're not going to own any of that. Whatever you own is going to be taken from you. If you don't understand that, just go check out the subject of eminent domain. Look, I mean, my grandpa years ago when I was just a little boy tried to build a housing subdivision, and he got right in the middle of the project, and the local airport threw down an eminent domain on him and shut down his project right off the end of the runway. And he lost that whole project. That's what eminent domain is. If the government or some mega corporation says we have to have your property, or if they want to put a highway through your community, you don't have a choice. Now, you may get some money out of it, but you're still going to lose your property. The little church I went to when I was a kid, part of that property was taken over by the government when they put a freeway through there. And some of you have experienced the power of eminent domain. You've lost properties to eminent domain. And that's what the globalists are about to do to us. They're going to take what we have. And it's not just going to be for a highway to go through. They're going to take everything we've got. And they say, you'll own nothing. Look at this. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. They're going to tell me, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. That's the globalist agenda. Who is it, guys? Who is it doing this? It's people like Klaus Schwab, this guy here on the left. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum. Where did he come from? Well, he is a protege of Henry Kissinger and one of the preeminent Roman Catholic archbishops who concocted the liberation theology doctrines. This is a Roman Catholic construct. This World Economic Forum comes from the belly of the beast. You date back 40 and 50 years. And I just have to tell you, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm going to tell you something. When you see what the globalists have been doing, Henry Kissinger, anybody knows that Kissinger was one of the fathers of modern day globalism. And for what it's worth, over the years, I've noticed that these mega networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, and all these guys, they are the number one mouthpiece of the globalists. You don't get anything but globalism out of these big mega media giants, ABC, NBC. NBC was tied at the hip, joined at the hip with globalism from the very beginning, and today it is. It's still a mouthpiece of the globalist propaganda, as CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, all these guys, they're all in the pockets of the globalists. You got these companies like BlackRock. They own $7, $8, $9, $10 trillion worth of properties all over the world. Largest landowners, largest property holders, largest business owners in all the world. Vanguard, State Street, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. These companies are worth billions, hundreds of billions, some worth over trillions of dollars. And they're taking over. That's the corporate elite that runs the World Economic Forum. And they're the ones that telling us that we're going to own nothing, we're going to be happy. It's a magic spell they're trying to cast on our minds, saying they're trying to tell us what we're going to think. They're trying to control our minds. They're trying to change us into slaves. They are the feudal lords and we are the serfs. We are the bond servants of these despotic men. I'll take you to the book of James. He said to the rich and the elites, chapter 5 of James, go to now, you rich men, weep and howl, for your misery shall come upon you. Here's God talking to these elitists, like the kind that's running the world today. He said, your riches are corrupted. Man, this makes me want to shout when I realize God really does have the number of Bill Gates. He does have George Soros on a string. He's got Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger and all these guys. God holds the key to their future, and I'm telling you, they're all going to be coming to judgment one of these days, and the saints of God that have been oppressed by these people are going to be delivered from their oppressions. Because God said, your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and they shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you, kept back by fraud. And the cries of them which have reaped and entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabbath. You have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts, and as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. But be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and has long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be patient, therefore, and establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. What's this all about? The coming of the Lord is our deliverance from the rich elite. The coming of the Lord is the deliverance of those who are going to steal our properties and steal our homes and steal our wages. You say, well, if they don't let me own my home, how am I going to live? I can tell you how you're going to live. They're going to give you a universal basic income. They're going to decide how much money you get. They're going to put you on a peon's wage. They're going to give you a cryptocurrency identification. You're going to have to take a mark, a global identification called in the Bible the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is going to furnish you a universal basic income. They're going to give everybody a monthly stipend, and you're going to pay your bills out of the money that they give you free. You don't have to work for it. It's just going to be money coming from them, and then whatever you work on the side is just going to be extra money. But they're going to addict you. They're going to addict you to your global universal basic income, and you'll have to have that universal basic income to live. And along with that, you're going to have that global ID. But what that says to the Church of the Living God, who says, no, I will not take that global ID. I will not take that mark of the beast. That means you're not going to have a universal basic income, and you're not going to own a piece of property, and you're not going to have anything you can do unless you have somehow made preparations to live, as it were, underground. Now, guys, I'm talking plain talk here today. I'm talking the kind of talk that people don't want to hear. I don't want to hear it. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. He's going to make war against the saints and overcome them. That means he's going to overcome me. That means he's going to overcome you. That means some of you and some of me maybe are going to die because we refuse to take the mark of the beast. Now, for whatever reasons, Paul said, we which are alive and remain shall be caught up to meet him in the air. Whatever that means, that tells me that there's going to be saints still living. I believe with all my heart a lot of people are going to survive this. I don't know how. They're going to survive miraculously. It's going to be like God's going to provide miraculous food and supplies, just like the manna that came out of the sky on the children of Israel in the wilderness. I mean, you got to remember, when they came out of the wilderness, they had nothing but the clothes on their back. They had a few little knickknacks that they carried with them, but for 40 years they lived off of what God fed them out of the sky in the wilderness. And he sent them quail till they puked. They got so much quail they couldn't eat it all. And he gave them water out of a rock. God can provide for his people whenever he wants to, but those that are appointed to death are going to die. You say, well, how do you know who's going to live and who's going to die? I don't know. I can't answer that question. God's the only one that knows that. You got to be willing. Like those three Hebrews, if they throw you in that furnace, you got to be willing to go, whether you get out of it or not. They told Nebuchadnezzar back then, you throw us in there, we believe God can deliver us. But if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down to this thing. And that's got to be your and my attitude during this period when they take everything we got and we own nothing, and they want us to be happy with that nothing. But I'm not going to accept this world's goods. I'm not going to take a mark of the beast just to survive. And if I have to die to resist the mark of the beast, then that's just what I'm going to have to do. And you can mark my word on that. I've come too far. I'm too close to heaven right now. I'm too far down this journey to walk away now and compromise. May God Almighty give me the strength to say no to that mark of the beast. If you bow down, if you compromise, you're not smart. You're a foolish man, a foolish woman, a foolish young person. If you let them give you that mark, if you take that global identification in your right hand or in your forehead, you're selling your eternal soul to the devil. And that's back to my whole premise in this thing. You'll own nothing. That's Satan's agenda in the Great Tribulation. And as it occurs to me, the whole purpose of Satan in the garden was to take over God's creation.